Hi, everyone. It's Eugene from National Strategic, and we're here for the second half of our introductory video series, talking about generating demand in this kind of new world that's upon us, and also effectively communicating with both patients and with the world around you as you are transitioning into kind of this new normal. So, in our previous video, we had talked a lot about how the world has changed. What are the consumers doing today in their new reality? What are practices doing today in some of the new realities? And what are some of the opportunities that you can take advantage of with some of your newfound time because we're seeing fewer patients potentially or not seeing patients just yet? And today, I'm going to use some of the knowledge that my team's gathered to share with you a little bit more about the kinds of messages and the kinds of techniques that are resonating well in today's environment to help communicate the value and also to help you prepare for some reopening. So again, what we covered last time was, if you're closed or if you have more time, what are some of the things that you could be doing right now to make sure that you are prepared for people when you reopen? And that's really more from a messaging and a communication standpoint. And today we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about all of the different ways that messaging needs to be positioned to resonate with today's reality and to be in tune with what people are really looking for. And just as a reminder, we look at lots of different angles, and specifically, we're looking at all of the different types of messaging angles across the different types of platforms. So the messaging I'm going to share with you today isn't just for your website or just for your social media. It really is something that you can use across the board, including in print material, handouts, flyers, as well as pretty much just about any type of communication, whether it's email or anything like that. Now, the thing we want to talk about with reopen is that obviously we all know that whether you've reopened already or you're preparing to reopen or whether you've reopened with some limited limitations, this is not what reopening really looks like. It's not like the entire population pops out of their homes and rushes into your office. But what I will tell you is that you actually can control the demand in today's environment. So people are actively listening to medical providers, maybe more than ever. People used to trust Dr. Google, but now we're trusting actual doctors. And that gives you an opportunity. As a medical business, you can kind of control the message. For those of us who are willing to speak about the types of things that we're doing, how we're managing COVID-19, how we're managing the current environment, and how we're keeping our patients safe, we can become the authority and people will look to us for guidance. You kind of get to dictate when it's safe for people to meet their needs. As a doctor, you can communicate to people to help them understand it is safe now. And if you don't do this, I mean, obviously your competitor will at some point, but if you're the first to market to communicate what it means to safely go to the eye doctor, then you definitely have a marketable advantage. Now, one thing I will remind you as we get ready to talk about the types of things you should be talking about and who you should be creating demand for is that you do need some foundational assets. We talked about this in a previous video, and we talked about some of the assets you should be creating with some of the time that practices of fewer patients. So they may have a little bit extra time to be able to create some of these things. Well, and the number one thing you need to make sure that you do is that you stay as transparent as possible. You want to tell people that you don't want to go dark and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where people say, well, I don't know, are these guys open? Are they doing things differently? Are they keeping patients safe? What you really, really want to do is you want to say, look, we realize that the world is changed around us. We realize that things have shifted, and we are transparently communicating our approach. And the truth is, COVID-19 isn't really going away. So every practice that we advise them to have a resource on their website, kind of like a COVID-19 landing page. And in the beginning, it used to say something like, "We are closed for updates about, for updates about office operations or the types of patients that we're seeing. Click here." But now, as we're slowly all reopening or we're adjusting our operations, one of the things that we've created or we recommend is creating a resource for people that says something like, here's how we're to learn more about how we're keeping our patients safe and approaching the challenges of COVID-19, click here. And what does that landing page need to have? Well, the landing page needs to talk about how you're serving the community, how you're keeping patients safe, and what people can expect about their appointment. This allows you to be transparent. This also allows you, in some cases, some clients have gotten really great results with sharing virtual office tours of some of the things they're doing differently, sharing some top 5 questions. Is it safe? Should I come in if I do have this, if I have that? And then also, remember, we're talking about pent-up demand. There is going to be pent-up demand, and when you reopen, make sure that you've taken care of both your social media and your search engine optimization opportunities. We did discuss this extensively in the last video, so I'm not going to go into those today, but I do want to remind you that these are opportunities that allow you to position yourself to serve the demand when patients start looking for help. And the question is, who do you create demand for? Well, in today's environment, you can create demand for your current patients, right? These are all the people who were displaced potentially. Think about people whose appointment was rescheduled, but also this is for people whose appointments are coming up. If their appointment is in a week or two, maybe they don't know if you're open or if you're not open. Maybe they're a little leery about coming out of their shell uh, communicating with them effectively. And I'll share with you some of the messages that work really well. Communicating with those people effectively could put you in a position to capture their trust and their business. So you think about all the people who may be considering additional procedures or people who have been stuck at home. One category that I always get a little bit of a kick out of is when people spend a lot of time locked up with their kids and they watch their kids do schoolwork and they realize maybe how different their kids manage some of those devices, or how closely they have to look at some of the papers as they're filling out worksheets. One of the things people realize is that maybe their kids need additional eye care that they hadn't realized before. So this is a great opportunity to attract current patients, people who are on your list, people who may have been displaced, and people who are really in your pretty close circle, but this is a great time to communicate with them. So what are some of the ideas for communicating with them? This is just one. There's lots and lots of these, and we'll be publishing future videos where we share more and more techniques. But in one of these ideas, we certainly want to recommend, sharing with people transparently that, we have made some adjustments to the way our schedule works. We're seeing fewer, in order to protect our patients, we're seeing fewer patients per day, and that means fewer appointments are available. As a result, if you want an appointment, those appointments are now a little bit more scarce. So we really recommend that you take action now and request your appointment now, and then we're able to, and we'll find a time that works well for you. This is using a scarcity principle. We'll talk about how scarcity plays into today's psychology, but this is also putting you in a position to control the demand. You can get a whole bunch of people to raise their hand and say, yeah, I definitely want an appointment, and I'm hearing how you're making your practice safer. I definitely want an appointment, but now this is your opportunity to say, okay, here's how I'm going to fill my slots for the next month, 2 months, whatever, as I operate. The other thing, this is a great opportunity for looking at your past patients, and this is recall opportunity, but not just recall for last year's patients, but you can go years and years deep depending on how good your database is, and you can pull that list. And this is a great time to adjust the messaging to the recall, because previously we had been sending things like, you missed your eye exam, or it's time to see the eye doctor. But now we can really focus on telling the story of how your eye health is a vital part of your overall health, or kind of an early indicator of your overall health. And in a society where we're a lot more sensitive to health issues, that's a great opportunity to really change up the message and to present yourself as a resource to your past patients. And again, I'll give you one technique. We have dozens and dozens of these that we'll share in the future, but one technique you can do is you can put out a YouTube video, and that YouTube video can be targeted to everybody who is on your recall list, so that when those people are spending more and more time on their devices, obviously they're spending more time on Facebook, they're spending more time on YouTube, they can see a recall message from you reminding them that your eye health is linked to your overall body health. And for example, all of the people who then engage with that video, you can retarget with a particular promotion, or you can drive those patients to book an eye exam, or you can just know who those people are and reach out to them and invite them in for an eye exam. And the other group that you want to potentially create demand for is who I'll call your future patients. You have to understand that this kind of industry outage for some number of weeks, whether in some cases, in some areas it was 6 weeks, in some areas it was 10 weeks, whatever, the industry outage has created opportunities. There are people out there who did not get served, who had needs, and there are people who may have not really cared about an eye exam, but now they care. And or there are people who maybe tried to reach out to their eye care provider, and those people were closed, and maybe they weren't so great at service, and maybe they weren't good communicators throughout this period of time. And this is a great opportunity to start some relationships and to position yourself as a servant of your community, of your local community, and as someone who is helping during this difficult time, and as somebody who is prepared to help with whatever problems people have. So this is a great list of people who you might be able to target. And what are some ways you can target? Again, I'll just give you one out of many, but one I think is really good is Facebook. So if you do cold traffic, you can create audiences in your general city or in your general kind of metro area. And this is one where we created an audience in Seattle, for example. And you can see we actually picked people who Facebook thinks are interested in glasses or contact lenses, which means those people have a higher propensity to visit websites about glasses or contacts, or have a higher propensity to react to ads about glasses or contacts. But these are people who are definitely in the market for glasses and contacts. These are people who care about eyewear. And these folks could be potentially hit with a Facebook ad. We talked in a previous video about how media is cheaper because a lot of big retailers have pulled out of their digital marketing plans. So now it's a bidding, it's all an auction. So you can get that same media cheaper, in some cases 40 or 50% cheaper, and you can attract those patients, and you can let people know that you are open, you're serving people, you're making your place safer, and that you're able to provide for them off needs to provide for needs that they have and that they may have deferred during this time. So now that we've talked about who you talk to, let's talk about what you say. And what you say is definitely guided by what patients are thinking about today. And if you look at the kind of general populace of the United States right now, there are three major concerns. And those major concerns are health, scarcity, and economics. And I'll dig a lot more into those in just a second. But health, everybody is worried. Obviously, that's the thing that those are some of the reasons why we've been taking the actions that we have been taking when we think about the shelter in place rules and things like that. We've heard a lot of experts talk about protecting your health. And so health is on people's minds. Scarcity is really more driven by, the fact that we had to, try to figure out where we're going to get our next roll of toilet paper, or, when we go into grocery stores and are faced with the reality that maybe some of the stuff that we are used to seeing on the shelves, the shelves are now empty. So we've all gotten a chance to experience that a little bit, and scarcity has become a decision driver for people. And the other side of that coin, of course, is accessibility. And the third part is economic. And we'll talk, obviously, we'll talk about what all of these are and how you develop some in-tune messaging to help to help with some of these to help address some of these top concerns. But the main one is when we talk about health, the main way to adjust to this top concern of patients is to talk about the reason that you're open. You are a medical business and you feel the responsibility to serve. And as part of that responsibility is helping your patients achieve their optimal health. And we're open because we care about your health. You don't want to talk about how you're open because you're just trying to stay in business. You want to talk about how you're open because you feel like you have a responsibility to your local group of patients, which I'm sure you do. And you're sensitive to the fact that people have a health concern, and you've made some changes for the protection of your patients and for the protection of your staff. And if you can communicate that clearly and transparently, and remember I talked about landing pages and social media, there are lots of ways where you can communicate how you're making these changes. You can position yourself as a local leader and one of the first people making these changes, or even a person who's making these changes, because there are going to be countless providers who kind of just make it look like they're doing business as normal, and that's going to turn off a lot of consumers. So if you're communicating the fact that you are sensitive to people's concerns, sensitive to people's health, and that you are openly making changes to accommodate for that, you're going to be you're going to be developing some in-tune messaging specifically for the health side of things. When we talk about scarcity, this is really about making sure that you put yourself in a position where patients feel like, well, there are in fact fewer appointments. And because there are fewer appointments, and that's just a reality of social distancing and those sorts of things, because there are fewer appointments, you are going to make it easy for people to request appointments, but they have to take action. They have to act now. So what we're doing is we're both providing an element of scarcity, which brings with it a little bit of urgency. And then we're also doing something about telling people that you are being convenient, and so that kind of you're the person who's saying there's not a lot of toilet paper, but when I get toilet paper, I'm going to make sure you're on the list to get it. And that's kind of the same mindset that you want to position yourself in is, eye care is really important to your health. And right now a little bit less is available in our office because of social distancing and because of additional precautions that we're taking. And we want to get you on the list so that you can be one of the first people contacted when we have an opening. And that's really kind of the way you address the scarcity component. And on the economic side, I know a lot of people are think that this is the time to run huge discounts because people are worried about the economy, worried about losing jobs, and that may certainly be one way to deal with this. But another way to deal with this is to really think about the fact that many of you are operating local businesses and you have a huge major advantage over big box stores, over kind of faceless corporations. And as you put yourself out there as a local business, this is a great time because a lot of the businesses, a lot of the posts on social media that are really getting the most amount of engagement when it comes to business is save local, buy local, shop local, save local businesses, save local restaurants. And you can put yourself in that same group as that we are a local business. We invest in the community. We invest in local charities. We help. We employ our friends and neighbors. That kind of messaging puts you in a position to really get a lot of favoritism on the economic side. And again, that's just a leverage point that many people take for granted, but it is a leverage point that exists in your business if you are in fact local to your community and you can absolutely communicate that. So, obviously other things you can do is, as we talked about, special pricing. The figuring out your insurance is an interesting one because there are people who are in a transitionary period with their jobs, so they're not really sure about how their benefits work right now. And if you can offer a service to help them figure out their insurance, that may actually be a good reason for them to call you or to give you their name and number. And of course, the frontline workers and just working and just being sensitive to the fact that there are people who are impacted by this crisis and who have to work through it, and just kind of communicating any sort of special relationships there does certainly kind of elevate your image and your brand when it comes to the economic side of things. So another point I wanted to make is that there are plenty of channels, distribution channels, for you to be able to push out these messages. Email is a great one. It's generally free. Text is very inexpensive. It comes included in lots of platforms, but it also, if you buy text in bulk, 3 to 5 cents a piece. Facebook, again, is much cheaper than it was before to advertise on Facebook, but certainly to post on Facebook is free. Google My Business. A lot of people don't realize that your Google My Business listing, your places page, so to speak, is also a great place to post messages. You can post things on Google My Business, and those Google posts actually get quite a few views. And, again, Google ads are a little bit cheaper. And then everybody who comes to your website as a result of your advertising or your messaging should be remarketed with these same messages. And this is just, again, a few of the techniques that I would recommend right off the bat, kind of low-hanging fruit. And we will have future content where we talk more about the types of things that you could be doing specifically for demand generation or communication. But hopefully we've covered a lot in these two videos, and I wanted to keep them short and under 20 minutes. There are definitely lots of goodies that we can give away for free. If you visit our website at nationalstrategic.com, we are providing specifically as our servitude during this difficult time of need for the industry. We're providing a lot of free goodies. You can have your website assessed for free. You can get advice on how to make some changes by yourself in some of your directories. And again, just feel free to reach out. We're happy to be a resource, and we're happy to share any of our research that we have As the situation continues to evolve, we want to be able to help everybody grow as a result of this and come out of this thing stronger and as well equipped as possible with all the right messaging and all the right tools for demand generation. So hopefully this has been helpful, and I look forward to serving you in the future.